this mic is now working. Good evening, everybody. When we talk about 76, we often talk about history. But what made that moment extraordinary wasn't simply protest. It was imagination. Young people refusing to accept a future designed without them. And I think that question still sits with us today. Because our generation faces very different challenges than they have before. So tonight is not about pretending we have all the answers or that this is the perfect platform. It's a space for imagination. And it's about asking a better question. If we were building South Africa for the next generation, what would we do differently? And that's why State of the Youth Address exists. It's not a political platform or an imitation of parliament. It's a civic space for imagination. A space where artists, technologists, activists, entrepreneurs, educators, community builders, and young people can come together and ask what the future should look like before someone else decides that for us. Many people know Citizen Code as a technology company. And for the last 16 years, I've worked across Africa, Asia, and humanitarian settings, designing technology that reaches millions of young people. But the biggest lesson technology has taught me is that technology is never really about technology. It's about people who gets heard, who gets included, who gets left behind. And if we want a better future, we cannot rely on technology alone. We need community, culture, creativity, and difficult conversations. Before we continue, I want to acknowledge the place that holds us tonight. We gather here in District 6. And as a descendant of District 6 through the Hendricks family lineage, I never take that lightly. This place reminds us that communities can be displaced, but memory can survive. And people can lose homes, but still fight for belonging. And imagination can endure even in the face of destruction. I want to thank a few people who made tonight possible. To my incredible team, Ilham Adams, Kiara Metu, and Zahir Jibe, thank you for carrying this vision with me. Can we please give them a round of applause? And to our lead sponsor, Momentum, thank you for believing in this platform and backing young people in meaningful ways and dealing with my phone calls and chaos for us to make this happen. You guys have been absolutely amazing. To BMW Century City, Vodacom, and Indigo Restaurant, thank you for helping bring tonight to life. And to our community of partners and exhibitors, thank you for showing us what building the future looks like in practice. And finally, to everyone in this room, I ask you to open your hearts, listen openly, be curious, challenge your assumptions, and somewhere during this evening, I hope you find your own answer to this question: what is your uprising? Thank you. It's now my pleasure to invite our lead sponsor, Momentum, to share a few words.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and good evening to the honorable ministers that are here with us tonight. My name is Ngosnathi Mahlangu. I look after the youth employment and entrepreneurship portfolio in the Momentum Group Foundation.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Salem Nolobabalonyati. I look after the consumer financial education portfolio for Momentum Group. And why is this portfolio so important? Now, limited financial education often leads to very poor financial decision making. It leads to over-indebtedness, and we know that young people are faced with the worst combination. On the one hand, they have limited financial education with, like the availability of that. But on the other hand, there's easy access to short-term credit and informal credit. That is why we do what we do, to equip young people with the tools for financial education.
Thank you so much, Salem. Speaking of finances, if you do come and visit the Momentum stall, which I encourage you to do so, we are also here for your journey to success, and we would like to fund your big idea. So we would like to announce that we will be funding your big idea with a cash investment of over 60,000 rands. So if you are, thank you, young people, you've got that big idea as a young person, please do come visit the Momentum stall, and then let's see if maybe you could stand the chance to win that cash prize. And please do follow us on Instagram, Momentum Group Foundation. Thank you so much.
My name is Lisa, by the way. I don't think I said that. When I spoke to Momentum and we spoke about what can we do, I said cash is king. Put randelas in the pockets of young people. Let's not waste time. So thank you, Momentum. Our opening address comes from someone whose life has been shaped by the belief that ordinary people can change extraordinary systems. At just 15 years old, Kumi Naidoo organized school boycotts against apartheid and became a target of the security police, eventually living in exile until South Africa's transition to democracy. Over the last 3 decades, he has become one of the world's most respected voices on human rights, climate justice, and citizen action. He served as the first person from the Global South to lead Greenpeace International and later became Secretary General of Amnesty International. And today he serves as president of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative, a global movement working to accelerate the transition away from fossil fuels and confront the climate crisis. So please join me in welcoming activist, climate justice leader, and one of South Africa's most influential global citizens, Dr. Kumi Naidoo.
Colleagues, dear brothers and sisters, and especially to the young people gathered in Cape Town today. I am so sorry I cannot be with you in person. However, I should start by saying, when I was a young person growing up in Durban under apartheid, I did not begin life thinking, one day I'll become an activist. No, like many young people, I was simply trying to make sense of the pain, injustice, confusion, and the madness of the world around me. I was 15 when my mom died, and that loss broke something inside me. But a wise elder said to me, my boy, one way to deal with your pain is to live with purpose and work for the dignity of all people. That advice saved me. So to the young people here today, if you're feeling anxious, angry, exhausted, or unsure of your place in the world, please know this, there is nothing wrong with you. Much of what you are feeling is a sane response to an insane system and an unjust world. A system that gives us unemployment, inequality, gender-based violence, corruption, climate chaos, and then tells young people to simply be positive. Sometimes I think positivity without justice is like a motivational poster without Wi-Fi. But here is the truth. Pessimism is a luxury we simply cannot afford. Not because things are easy, they are not, but because every generation before us that changed history at moments when change looked absolutely impossible. Apartheid looked permanent. Slavery and colonialism looked permanent. The discrimination against women looked permanent. But ordinary people, and especially young people, refused to behave as if injustice was normal. Today, climate injustice is one of the clearest examples of this. Young people, especially in the global south, who did the least to create this crisis, are being asked to pay the highest price. Floods, drought, heat, hunger, displacement. These are not future threats. They are already here. And let us be honest, the climate crisis is not only about carbon emissions coming from oil, coal, and gas. It is about power. It is about who benefits and who suffers, and whose lives are treated as disposable. But young people are not victims waiting to be rescued. You are leaders, creators, organizers, healers, and truth tellers. You are already reimagining governance, community, identity, and purpose. And the one thing I want to say to young people at this point, my generation loves to say to you, oh, young people are the leaders of tomorrow. I say to you, you need to push back against. If you wait for tomorrow, there might not be a tomorrow to take leadership in. You have to assert your leadership now. You have to bring fresh thinking, bring the freshness of the perspective of your lenses of looking at old intractable problems with a new perspective, because my generation, if we are brutally honest, has run out of fresh ideas. And this is where artivism matters so deeply. Art is not decoration after the struggle. Art is part of the struggle. Music, poetry, dance, theater, film, fashion, comedy, storytelling, and gaming. These are ways we speak when the official language fails us. They help us move from the head to the heart. They help us grieve, laugh, remember, and organize. Our son, Ricardo, who was known to many in Africa and around the world as Ricky Rick, sat his mum and I down a month before he passed, and he said, guys, you're really not good at your work, you know? You've been fighting for democracy, human rights, justice, gender equality, sustainability, and all since you were teenagers. And when you look at the world, it's all moving in the wrong direction. So why don't you just accept you're old and chill now? So we asked him, why is it you think that we are failing? He said, it's because you'll aim all your messages and narratives at the brain, and you'll ignore the heart, the body, and the soul. And you don't move people by long speeches, big words, complicated acronyms, and so on. So Ricky taught me so much about the power of arts and culture to move people in ways that speeches alone cannot. So my message to you is simple. Do not wait for permission to lead. Do not wait until you have the perfect job, the perfect degree, the perfect plan, or the perfect mental health day. Begin where you are. Begin with your friends. Begin in your school, your street, your community, your online space, your art, your voice. And remember the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We need to go far, and also we need to go fast at the same time, given that the climate crisis especially is getting worse and worse, and there's a clock ticking there. We need your courage, your imagination, your impatience, and most importantly, your love. We need you not only to protest what is wrong, but to build what is right. So today, I salute you and I ask you, make good trouble. Make beautiful trouble. Make trouble with your music, with organizing, with kindness, with courage, and with solidarity. The future is not something we inherit. It is something we fight for, sing for, dance for, and build together. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to share these few words with you, and I wish you well in every step you take in the service of society, in the service of your family and your immediate community. And just remember this, have fun along the way. Make sure you build circles of support around you, because the years ahead are going to be challenging and you're going to need networks of support around you. And please take care of both your physical health and your mental health. And remember, the struggle for justice is not a marathon, but a sprint. So pace yourself, persevere, don't give up, and know that not only is another world possible, on a quiet day, as a writer once said, we can hear that new world waiting and breathing to be born. And it will not be born without the vision, the clarity, and the wisdom of young people. So don't wait to lead tomorrow. Take leadership today. Thank you very much.
Those of you who are here and know me, I love good trouble. Let's get to it. I ask for your patience. We are running over time, but there are very important conversations to be had. Hang tight. There will be a break halfway through. It is my absolute honor and privilege as Citizen Code. I would like you all to stand up, please. All protocols observed. I would like you to stand up as we welcome our Madam Speaker of the House for State of the Youth Address 2026. Can we please give her a warm welcome?
Order. Jokes. May we please all remain standing for the singing of the national anthem. I hope the DJ has cued us in. If not, one of us will have to sing. Oh, I can't sing. I can talk, but I cannot sing. All right, I don't think we have DJ. I don't know who the DJ is. Can someone lead us in the national anthem, please? Thank you very much, honorable members, distinguished guests, ministers. We may all be seated. By way of introduction, my name is Nompendulo Mkhatshwa. I am literally a former member of parliament. I served in the 6th administration of the National Assembly in the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. So that was 2019 to 2024. And so I know some of you may have attended SOYA, State of the Youth Address 2024. And if it's a little more rigid and a bit more parliamentary, it's because it's literally being run by a former member of parliament. The greatest rule is really for us to just engage in good faith and to hear each other out. And so thank you very much to Lisa and the team at Citizen Code for trusting me with this very important engagement. I thought it was important for us to begin with the national anthem because it is a prayer. And 50 years ago, on the eve of the 16th of June, so today when we gather, young people were organizing themselves against the apartheid regime. And so when we sing Nkosi Sikaleli, Africa, we need to think of moments like that and where those young people, what those young people would have been thinking to go against a system as big as the apartheid regime. And so, not to make the evening somber at all, but I just thought to contextualize that it was very important that we begin with the national anthem. So again, it is my honor to formally open this sitting of the State of the Youth Address 2026, hosted by Citizen Code. And I'd like us to really give a huge round of applause to Ms. Lisa Adams and the team at Citizen Code. As I've said, honorable members, distinguished guests, we meet on the eve of the 16th of June in the year in which South Africa marks 50 years since the 1976 Soweto uprising. The theme of the country under which we commemorate this is Reset at 50 for the Future Calls. The youth of 1976 were confronting a system that was using the education system, the curriculum, medium of instruction, funding, school governance, to determine who would think, who would labor, who would obey, who would own, and who would govern. Bantu education was not by accident. It was a policy working exactly as it was designed. That is why 1976 must be remembered with political clarity. It was shaped by the intellectual force of Steve Biko and the Black Consciousness movement, by Nkgopotse Tiro and his rejection of Bantu education, by the organizing leadership of Tsietsi Mashinini, and by young women such as Bongile Mkhabela, who remind us that women were not witnesses to struggle, but organizers, leaders, and political actors in their own right. Honorable members, in honoring June 16, we must connect memory to material change. And so we must acknowledge that democracy has made measurable gains. We have a constitution that protects the right to education, equality, dignity, freedom, and public participation. We have expanded access to schooling, higher education, and youth development. From the TAFSA, in the early 90s, before maybe Candice and I were born, maybe there are some here who know what TAFSA is. During the era of TASFA, 7,400 students were supported through a government loan. Today, South Africa has moved to a bursary-based NSFAS system supporting around 1 million students. Between 2019 and 2023 alone, NSFAS dispersed 192 billion rand, benefiting almost 3.9 million students. These gains matter, but the democratic task before us is no longer only to open doors, it is to ensure that those doors lead somewhere, to work, ownership, and dignity. In the first quarter of 2026, South Africa had 4.7 million unemployed young people. Between the ages of 15 and 34, the youth unemployment rate stood at 45.8%, while 45.6% of young people in this age group were not in employment, education, or training. That is not only a labor market statistic. It is a democratic warning. Those numbers, they're not just a statistic. They are a warning to our democracy. They tell us that the pathway from education to economic participation is still broken for way too many young people. The post-apartheid state has expanded access, but access must now translate into livelihoods, productivity, and ownership at the scale required. That is why the theme Reset at 50 must be taken seriously, especially in a room convened by Citizen Code. For those who build systems, write code, design products, analyze data, develop platforms, and work with artificial intelligence, you know that a system can appear to be running while still producing the same error. The interface can be new while the back end remains old. The dashboard can show activity while the user remains excluded. The algorithm can work exactly as designed while the design itself is unjust. That is the political meaning of Reset in 2026. It's not about deleting the past. It's about interrogating the architecture of the present, the laws, the budgets, curricula, institutions, markets, and data systems through which opportunity is either expanded or denied. A citizen is not a passive user of democracy. A code is not only software. Code is the logic behind which a system runs. If that code continues to reproduce exclusion, young people must not only be invited to comment on the system, they must be part of rewriting it. By 2050, Africa is projected to account for 42% of global births and almost 40% of all children under 18. So almost the majority of the global population will be young Africans, basically, if my maths, and yeah, ish. Presidents have a history of not understanding numbers very well. And I'm a former president of the SRC at WITS. So the question before this House is not whether young people are the future. The question is whether young people will design, own, and govern the future. Will we design platforms or merely use them? Will we own data or merely produce it? Will we govern artificial intelligence or be governed by it? This House is therefore, honorable members, not convened to imitate Parliament for entertainment. It is convened as a civic prototype, a space where young people who are already building in their sectors, my ministers of the future. In fact, I think they're ministers of the now, right? So it's convened as a civic prototype, a space where young people who are already building in their sectors are invited to place before us their diagnosis of the present and their design principles for the future. And whilst this House is non-partisan, very non-partisan, there's no color I am wearing. I'm wearing orange and green, and okay? So whilst this House is non-partisan, it's not apolitical. Whilst it is creative, it's not unserious. And though it is innovative, it is grounded in the material conditions of the youth of South Africa. As Madam Speaker, my responsibility this evening is to hold the House and maintain order and flow of proceedings. Honorable members, honorable ministers, you have a limited 6 minutes, so the clock is there. In Parliament, the Speaker or the House Chair never says you have 1 minute left. It's not like debating society. No, we're running the country. When you run the country, people must see the time and know how to pace themselves against the time, right? So you have 6 minutes, honorable members, to deliver your interventions. And I will be firm, fair, and consistent in applying that time because it's there. Honorable members, this House is therefore formally in session. The House will now proceed to an address by Minister of Menstruation. Honorable Chirwa, as she makes her way to the podium, is a menstrual health activist, academic, and founder of Curate, widely known as South Africa as the Minister of Menstruation. Her work has helped position menstrual health as a question of dignity, education, and economic participation. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Menstruation, Honorable Candace Chirwa.
Thank you so much. Before I proceed with my speech, I would like to call on a volunteer. This volunteer has given himself the opportunity to have his first period. So please, can we give a round of applause? You're on level 5. Welcome to your first period. Fellow ministers, esteemed guests, and every young person in this room, ministerial greetings, all protocols observed, period. A sock, a piece of newspaper, a school uniform sleeve, a plastic bag folded over on itself, toilet paper layered until it holds, a rag cut from an old t-shirt in the dark before school. I want to start there, not with policy, not with a quote from a framework document, but with that list, because that list is the honest answer to the question I was asked to stand up here and answer tonight. What is the state of menstruation in South Africa in 2026? That is what it is. For a lot of young people in this country, that is what it still is. Now, I know some of you in this room do not menstruate. And I want to talk to you for a second, not to make you uncomfortable, but because I genuinely think you deserve to understand what we're actually talking about. And for some other cases, to the gentle brother on to my left, actually feel what we're talking about. How are you doing there?
This is interesting.
Okay. Here is what I want you to imagine. Once a month, without your consent or your scheduling, your body does something involuntary and completely uncontrollable. It does not care that you have a maths test or presentation at work tomorrow. It does not care that you're wearing light gray pants. It arrives. And here is the thing, nobody ever explained to you that it was coming because in your house and in your school, this thing did not have a name you're allowed to say out loud. So the first time it happened, you thought something was wrong with you. Now go to school and spend the whole day managing something you're never prepared for in a bathroom with no lock on the door, no running water, no bin, and the very real possibility that you will bleed through your clothes in front of people who have all been through that taught that this is disgusting and funny at the same time. And then do that again next month and the month after that for an average for 30 to 40 years. You're on level 20. So, to the men here tonight, I'm not asking you to feel guilty. I'm asking you to carry that image into every budget meeting, every school governing body meeting, every conversation where this gets deprioritized because it feels like a woman's issue. It is not a woman's issue. It is a human rights issue, and it needs people in every room to say so. I Menstruate, an NGO, conducted a grassroots research with over 500 learners in all 9 provinces and found that 78% had never been taught anything about menstruation before their first period arrived. 3/4 of them described their first period as frightening, shameful, isolating, not because menstruation is any of those things, because we made it those things. Things refusing to talk about. Here is what we decided to normalize. And I use the word normalize carefully, because that is exactly where the harm lives. We have decided it is normal that a learner stays at home from school because going means the risk of bleeding through her uniform in class. We've decided it is normal to tell a young person that the pain, that reminds me, let me take you up, hold on, 25, that the pain they are experiencing is just part of menstruating. How many of us are always told, drink some grandpa, use a hot water bottle, stop being dramatic? And so they do. They stop reporting, they are in class doubled over, and say nothing because they have been told by adults, by healthcare providers, sometimes by the very people who love them, that this is how it just is. And here's what we're not telling them. That pain is sometimes endometriosis. You're on level 30. That sometimes it's endometriosis, that sometimes it's fibroids, and that sometimes it is PMOS. That silence we enforce around menstruation is not normal. And we know that in the beginning of this year, the University of Free State published the first study of its kind in testing pads and panty liners sold on our shelves, including products marketed as organic and chemical-free. Substances linked to hormonal disruption and long-term reproductive health risks. Medical experts have rightly urged calm, but what the study exposed is a gap we didn't know we had, that even when products do arrive, we have not been asking whether they are safe. That question belongs in this conversation. It belongs in the regulatory framework, and it belongs in the hands of young people who deserve to know what they are putting against their bodies. So what do we actually do in closing? Let me take you up in what we do. Level 35. The youth of 1976 understood something I keep returning to. They understood that what is normal is not always what is acceptable. And the most dangerous thing a system can do is make injustice feel ordinary enough that people stop noticing it. Period poverty is ordinary. Diagnostic neglect is ordinary. Broken school toilets are ordinary. A 13-year-old reaching for a newspaper on school morning to put in her underwear because there is nothing else, that is ordinary. And I am tired of it being ordinary. So in closing, we know what needs to change. We have known for a long time. The only question that remains is whether he can survive on level 50. But besides that, the only question that remains is whether we are willing to be the generation that stops listing the problem and starts being the answer to it. And that's on.
Thank you, Honorable of Menstruation. May we ask the brave gentleman who stepped into the shoes of a woman for 6 minutes? Not 6, 7 days? This is a gift to you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Menstruation. Yeah, I'm tempted. This thing, I'm just trying to imagine like Mam Togo Didiza, the Speaker of Parliament, you know, because you know they're scripted. They literally read a script, you know, and after each member debates, I wonder how they feel not being tempted to like comment on like what because they literally have to say next, like next. There's no time for your views. The commenting is in the members and how they debate. And I'm saying these things because, you know, as we move through the ministers and we think today and we reflect on our governance institutions, because part of the work that Honorable Chirwa, the Minister of Administration, does is to actually interact with policy and legislation and how it protects women's reproductive health. Not like in a mock parliament like we're in today. No, like literally she does it on the picket lines outside parliament and literally submits written submissions to parliament to shape our legislation. And so when we think about the things we want to see change, we also need to think about our governance infrastructure and framework as a country and how it enables us to see the kind of change that we want. So I want to really try and caution myself from being a program director to being a Madam Speaker, because those are two different roles. But now we're going to thank you, Honorable Chirwa. The House will now Mandla. The House will now proceed to an address by Minister of Digital Safety and Cybersecurity. Honorable Musaji is an engineer, social entrepreneur, and one of South Africa's recognized voices at the intersection of technology, gender, and innovation. Her work has focused on building pathways for girls and women into sectors that have historically excluded them, while also shaping safer digital futures through work in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and public interest technology. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Digital Safety and Cybersecurity, Honorable Nadia Musaji.
Thank you, Speaker of the House, my fellow ministers, young people in the room, and young people working from the edges. I have to say that I'm vertically challenged, so I had to move the crate so that I could stand here and speak to you today. And clearly this podium was developed by somebody that was not vertically challenged. But I want to start with another confession, not just about my vertical challengedness, but I do identify as a tall person, is that I do love cookies. You know, the warm kind, the chewy choc chip type. But somewhere over the last 10 years, we got tricked into accepting a different kind of cookie. You know the ones. Every time you go to a website and there's a little pop-up that says, do you accept the cookies? And we all click accept every single time. Because why not? Give me the cookies. I love the cookies. I want all the cookies. Except when we do say reject, suddenly there's terms and conditions. There's a legal disclaimer. It feels like a hostage negotiation with a website. But here's the truth that no one tells you. That cookie, it's not a treat. What are you saying yes to? You're saying yes to being watched. You're signing the permission slip to your attention, to your location, to your anxieties, your late night search history, all to be packaged to the highest bidder. That's the first permission we give away for free. And in 2026, this year, we need to stop pretending that that's okay. We grew up thinking that privacy was closing the bathroom door. But in the digital world, privacy means something more radical. It means power. And here is the gendered reality that no one talks about. For young women, that tracking isn't just annoying, it's dangerous, because your location data is sold to a third-party broker that is rich, and suddenly safety isn't a right, it's a commodity. So I'm asking you today, what if we stop treating reject all as an act of rebellion? Why don't we just say no? Which brings me to my shiny new friend, artificial intelligence. I'm an engineer, I'm a techie, I love what AI can do, but I'm also a realist living in South Africa in 2026. And right now, we are living through a quiet crisis of trust. You can't trust a video anymore. You can't trust a voice note. You can't trust a job offer that slid into your DMs, right? Because the tools that fake reality are now free, and they can be in anybody's hands. You receive a video call from your cousin needing urgent money for hospital bills. It looks like your cousin. It sounds like your cousin. Your cousin is sitting right next to you on the couch. That's not a glitch. That's a weapon. But here is what I need us to get uncomfortable with, because that deep fake, it didn't come from nowhere. It came from data. And we handed that data over one cute video at a time. Let me ask you something, and let's be honest, right? How many of you have filmed a TikTok dance in your bedroom? Get ready with me tutorial in front of your mirror? A funny skit on the couch with your school blazer just hanging at the door? Your mom making a reel of you at your sports event in your school's uniform because she's so proud of you being able to kick the soccer ball at school? You eating at your favorite restaurant with all your friends laughing? I'm not judging. We all want to be seen. We all want to laugh. Connection is not the enemy. But here's what we are not saying out loud. We're letting strangers into our homes. Not metaphorically, literally. That bookshelf behind you with your matric certificate, now they know your name and your graduation year. That window in your background, now we know which block of flats you live in. That voice note you posted about your daily routine, walking to the taxi rank, now they know where you're going to be at 7:45 in the morning. And the people are watching, they're not your fans, right? They are scrapers, they are bots that download your videos, your location data, map your habits, log your likes, your fears, your schedules, your vulnerabilities. They feed all of that into an AI model that builds the perfect threat, the perfect phishing message, the perfect heist. Because a criminal doesn't need to break into your front door because you already showed them how to get in through your Instagram story. I'm not saying stop dancing. I'm not saying stop being joyful. Lord knows this country needs more joy. But what I'm saying is recognize that every funny video, every makeup tutorial is data, and data in the wrong hands is a blueprint for harm. We're raising a generation that has to fact-check reality before we can feel safe. That's exhausting. That's not resilience. That's a failure of design. Now, I refuse to stand here and just describe the fire, because all I can see is firefighters. Here's the opportunity, and I need you to hear me clearly. The same digital world that is tracking you, the same AI that is lying to you, needs you to fix it. Cybersecurity is not a career for guys sitting in dark rooms with a hoodie on. No, good Lord, no. Cybersecurity is the girl that noticed that her friend's account was hacked. Cybersecurity is for that young person who knows what it's like to be poor and desperate. And you can fix that desperation. You understand desperation. It's for the organizer, it's for the activist, it's for the artist who just wants to keep our family WhatsApp group safe. Right? South Africa has the highest rate of cybercrime in the world, and yet we have a massive shortage of young people to defend against it. That gap, that's your job, that's your business, that's your freedom. Right? So 3 critical things and 3 places to start. 1, young people, before you click accept all, pause. Ask yourself, what am I giving away for free? Start treating your data like an asset. You wouldn't give a stranger your house keys. Why are you giving them the location on your website, right? Before you post the video, check your room, scan your background. What are you showing that you don't mean to show? 2, organizations, right? Stop calling it digital literacy, good Lord, I hate that buzzword, right? Teach people to spot a deep fake, teach them to set up multi-factor authentication, right? Governments and organizations, stop hiring young people as interns to make us coffee, right? The average age of a cyber criminal is dropping so much, the cyber defenders. Turn our young people into privacy officers as ethicists, and make sure that we think about our digital safety as fragile. But the state of the youth is unstoppable, so now go and secure your future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. I definitely will not be accepting just any cookie or all cookies. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Masculinity. Honorable Ndlovu is a youth mentor, health and development practitioner. He's also an advocate for positive masculinity. His work asks an urgent question for our country: what healthier, more responsible, and more accountable models of masculinity can look like in South Africa today? I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Masculinity, Honorable Dr. Rodwell Ndlovu.
Madam Speaker, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Members of the House, distinguished leaders, fellow young South Africans, all protocols observed. Good evening. Before I begin my address, allow me to confess something. It would be wrong of me to stand before this House and pretend that I've always had the answers, that I've always been strong, or that I've always had it together. In fact, it would be wrong of me to start this address without saying, I'm not crying on Sunday. Or rather, as Malcolm Moore said, I sang in same love, I can't even cry on Sundays. That line has stayed with me for years, not because it was controversial nor political, but because it captured a painful truth about many men, especially young men, living in South Africa. And since we're confessing things tonight, yes, I'm a Swiftie. I know some honorable members would laugh at me and may start judging me. But yes, I do also listen to Drake more than I should. My friends will say that. Because while many artists, we listen to music as young people, while many artists taught men how to be hard, Taylor Swift taught the world that the power of emotional honesty, and Drake taught young men and men that heartbreak is something worth talking about. Imagine that. A world where telling the truth about feelings is seen as strength rather than weakness. Sure. Perhaps that is exactly what South Africa needs today, especially from young men and young people. Because the truth is that many of us are not okay. I know this because I've not always been okay myself. For the past year, I deactivated all my social media accounts, not because I wanted to disappear, but because the silence was too loud, the whispers were too loud, the notifications felt too heavier, every opinion felt louder, sure. Every expectation felt too impossible for me to achieve. Sure. And somewhere in that silence, I realized something profound. We live in a society where everybody is connected, yet so many people are lonely. We live in a country where everybody is speaking, and yet few feel heard. Yeah. Today in South Africa has one of the highest youth unemployment rates. The Madam Speaker spoke around those. And in a society where we were told that go to school, get degrees, education is the key to success, every one of us know at least 10 friends or 10 acquaintances who are sitting with qualifications at home and cannot get jobs, where they keep knocking and every door is locked to them. Imagine those hopes, family expectations, those responsibilities that feel failed. Someday you end up feeling hopeless. And where does that hopeless go? Young men are told every day that be strong, toughen up, be a man, you have to have it together. Young men are struggling. And also we're facing another crisis, and that leads to facing another crisis. And believe me not, I'm not making a justification for what I'm about to speak about. We're facing a crisis of gender-based violence through that hopelessness, through that anger, through those harbored resentments. Then it leads us to IPV, intimate partner violence, and gender-based violence. South Africa remains one of the most dangerous places in the world for women to walk at night. Everybody has a story that all of us are afraid now that Cape Town, especially women, now that the sun sets quite early, a few of you have taken your evening jogs because we all know what will happen if if the sun set and it's dark and you take your walk, you might not make your walk back warm. And those are the challenges that we are faced with in South Africa. Too many daughters never come home, too many mothers bury their children, too many survivors carry the trauma that lasts a lifetime. And let me be clear, as I said earlier on, there's no excuse for all of those. It's not unemployment. We cannot excuse unemployment. We cannot say it's trauma, it's not culture, it's not tradition. Violence against women is not strength, it's cowardice. It's not masculinity, it's the failure of masculinity. But if we are serious about ending gender-based violence, we must also be serious about us understanding where it begins. Hence, I gave all those examples earlier on. Because head people often head people. And head boys often become head men. The question is not only what is wrong with men, the question is what happened to them? What happened before the violence, before the addiction, before the prison sentence, before the headline? What happened to the boy? Because nobody is born believing that controlling women makes them more powerful or make them more masculine. These things are taught, and if they are taught, they can be unlearned. Perhaps the most heartbreaking statistics of all this is that nearly 80% of suicides in South Africa are committed by men. Suicide has become one of the leading causes of death among young people. So, in closing, as I see that my time is running out, let's imagine a South Africa where every young people is told that it is okay to cry, it is okay to feel, it is okay to tell your friends, your mates that I'm going through a heartbreak. It is okay to speak out, it is okay to seek help, it is okay to go to therapy as men and to speak as men. It is okay to speak out. So, in closing, as I said earlier on, I'm not crying on Sundays because perhaps the greatest act of courage in our generation is finally allowing ourselves to cry, to heal, and to rise together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Imagination. Honorable Noor Mohammed is an activist, artist, and researcher whose work sits at the intersection of creativity and social justice. Through activism, art, and scholarship, they remind us that imagination is not escapism. It is one of the tools through which communities are able to build different futures. English, the bundles of English are depleting. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Imagination, Honorable Reza Noor Mohammed.
Humans need capitalism. Otherwise, there's no incentive and nobody will do anything. That sounds ridiculous, right? But I have heard it over and over and over, not just from the older generations, but from young people too. We have been made to believe that we need capitalism to survive, that it's natural. This statement reveals so much more about the state of the human condition, the state of imagination. My name is Reisa Noor Mohammed, and I am a 24-year-old intersectional activist, artist, and revolutionary, and tonight, your Minister of Imagination. Tomorrow marks the 50th anniversary of the Soweto uprising. 50 years ago, youth all over the country marched in opposition of the oppressive apartheid regime. Today, we are still surrounded by injustices, active apartheid regimes, and multiple genocides. Through all this, the climate crisis is upon us. As a young person, I find it too easy to slip into a state of despair. This is something that I share with youth all over the country and the world. It feels like we have inherited an already broken system. And we must fix problems that we did not cause. With so many systemic problems, it is difficult to imagine a world where we do not constantly fight for ourselves. But in those moments of despair, I have to make the active effort to remember that I am here today because of the people before me, and they could fight because of the people before them. We are all here because our predecessors imagined a better world for us, like every young person who marched in 1976. And now, I want to share my own journey of imagination with you. My activism journey began in 2019 when I was 17 years old. The reality of the climate crisis, that its roots are in colonialism, capitalism, and imperialism, had just sunk in. It's something I had to figure out myself through connecting the dots. Nobody told me. School taught me the individual components, but I was left to piece it together. And I was angry. It felt like the people around me didn't care the way that I did, and I couldn't understand it. I came to the conclusion that they just didn't know. I brainstormed to think of creative ways to tell people about the climate crisis and began to organize public performance art protest pieces to raise awareness and encourage people to come to us. The first performance art protest was in a mall in an affluent area in Joburg. We set up a dinner table and pretended to eat plastic for 4 hours. Most people outright ignored us. Some tried to distract us and tease us. This was an important lesson, but not the one I thought it would be. The second performance art protest was in the Maboneng precinct in the Johannesburg CBD. For those who don't know, the precinct was a hub of arts, and people from the suburbs would flock in over the weekends to enjoy an authentic African urban experience, often ignoring the fact that this one street in the CBD does not reflect the urban condition for most. 3 of us, dressed in black and wearing plastic bottles as gas masks, walked up and down the street for hours. The people from the suburbs mostly ignored us. It was the people on the street, the people who really inhabit the space, that spoke to us. We talked about how serious the climate crisis is, but the sentence I heard over and over was, "But the government doesn't care." That day is when I learned the most important lesson of all. It wasn't about teaching people. It was about having conversation and facilitating a space of mutual learning. And together, as a collective, imagine a better future for us all. Since my high school days, I have moved through university and have become qualified as an anthropologist, human geographer, and social scientist. Through my degrees, I've been exposed to so many new concepts and theories that shape the way I think. But the base of it all is still what I discovered, realized, and believed before even entering academia. What I learned through simply living and interacting with the world around me. The only difference is that now I have the official words for what I have always been passionate about: people and place. One concept that specifically resonated with me is imaginative geographies. The term imaginative geographies can be used to describe the action of recognizing the world around us and empower us to imagine alternatives. This is a full thought process that requires a lot of reflection and imagination. It is something that many of us already do. The way I describe this process is to break it into steps. Acknowledge the world around you. Ask why things are the way they are. Realize that our society and spaces were created. Recognize that this is not natural. Something influenced it to become the way it is. Once you recognize this, realize it does not have to be this way. And then imagine alternatives. A large number of the people who tell me there are no alternatives believe so because they are afraid. They feel despair. They truly believe that humanity was built to doom us all, that destruction is in our nature. But this is not true. This is something we have been made to believe. Throughout history and into the present, there have been communities and cultures who coexist with nature, who live sustainably and live together. We need to believe that it can happen again, and we need to imagine a way to move forward and build a society that is truly for everyone. We, as human beings, are storytellers and have been since the beginning of time. You are allowed to imagine. As your Minister of Imagination, I beg you, do not fall into the trap of believing that this is the natural order of things. That was the intention of capitalism. That is how they get you, which is why imagining alternatives is rebellion.
Thank you so much, Minister Noor Mohammed. I had to put on my glasses after I realized I completely butchered your name, Raisa, because I realized that I'm struggling to read there. I think if the youth of 1976 didn't use their imagination, we wouldn't have the basic right to education enshrined in our Constitution today. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Employment. Honorable Magwaza is the project lead at Youth Capital, a national advocacy campaign working to tackle youth unemployment in South Africa. Her work brings together evidence, policy, and community action to ensure that young people are not merely spoken about in employment policy, but are active participants in shaping it. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Employment, Honorable Buhle Bethu Magwaza.
Madam Speaker, fellow ministers, distinguished guests, and most importantly, the young people of South Africa. 50 years ago, the youth of 1976 marched against an education system designed to limit their futures. They marched for dignity, opportunity, and the right to participate fully in society. As I prepared this address, I found myself wondering whether the youth of 1976 would recognize the youth of 2026. And I think they would. They would recognize the struggle. The context and language may have changed, but the questions remain the same. Who gets access to opportunity? Who gets to participate, and who gets left behind? Today, I stand before you as the Minister of Employment to deliver the state of youth unemployment in South Africa. The state of employment in South Africa is one that is of grief. Not because young people lack ambition, not because they lack talent, not because they're unwilling to work, but because opportunities remain far too scarce. Today, nearly 10 million young South Africans between the ages of 18 and 34 are either in employment, education, or training. These are young people who want to work, I'm struggling with the mic, who want to work, study, build skills, and contribute to society, but are unable to do so. And we are seeing the consequences of this play out in real time. Over the past few months, we have witnessed scenes that should make all of us in this room and in this country deeply uncomfortable. In Cape Town, more than 25,000 young people were seen seeking out opportunities that were made available of only 1,000. In Tembisa, Midrand in Johannesburg, young people carried CVs moving from factory to factory in search of work. In KwaZulu-Natal, unemployed teachers slept outside district offices hoping for placement opportunities. And nationally, more than 150,000 applications were submitted for just 240 vacancies in the Department of Health. If there was ever any doubts about whether young people want to work, these numbers should put that debate to rest. They are proof that young people are looking for work and showing up in large numbers. One of the most damaging myths in our society is that youth unemployment is a problem of motivation. If you worked harder, if you tried harder, if you networked more, maybe things will be different. But somehow evidence tells a different story. Young people are doing what is being asked of them. They are studying and qualifying in numbers. But what is really missing is the opportunity. It is not a lack of efforts, but merely opportunity. But while challenges are significant, there's also reasons for hope. Despite what we often hear, this country is not short of opportunities. In fact, one of the things that has become increasingly clear over the years is that we now know more far about what works than what doesn't. We know that young people need work experience. We know that transitions between learning and earning need to be strengthened. We know that the cost of looking for work and for starting a business is the biggest barrier. And we know that public investments can create pathways into employment while also meeting community needs. The evidence is compelling. Programs such as the Basic Education Initiative, the Social Employment Fund, and the National Youth Service have shown that when opportunities are created, young people take them up and at scale. These programs do more than create jobs. They provide income, work experience, confidence, and pathways in economic participation. At the same time, they strengthen communities and improve public services, demonstrating that employment creation and social impact do not have to be competing. They also remind us of something really important, that there is no shortage of work to be done in this country. There is a shortage of funded opportunities that connects young people to that work. The promise of 1976 was never meant to end at the classroom door. As South Africa moves closer to the final adoption of the 2026-2027 national budget, the future of millions of young South Africans is being shaped in real time. National budgets are often presented as technical documents filled with numbers, allocations, and line items. But they are much more than that. They are moral and political statements with real-life consequences for people. Therefore, this Youth Month, we should move beyond remembrance. We must also look at accountability. We must look beyond the speeches and commemoration and really examine whether our budgets, our policies, and programs are expanding or narrowing opportunities for young people. Because the question before us is no longer whether we know what works, it's whether we are willing to invest in it. If youth unemployment is the defining challenge of our generation, then it must become one of the defining priorities of the country's national budgets. 50 years ago, young people demanded the right to shape their future. Today, that demand remains, but it sounds different. It sounds like a graduate searching for work, a young entrepreneur trying to get started, and a young person asking, is there a place for me in this economy? The state of employment in South Africa is not where it needs to be, but it's not beyond repair. The question, therefore, before us is whether we are willing to act with the urgency, imagination, and courage that this moment demands. I thank you.
I just listened to Honorable Buhle and I was like, on which benches? Can we get her on the benches of Parliament? Like, I don't know what colors you wear. I don't know what colors you wear on voting day. But I mean, girl, get a t-shirt on. Or create a color that we can rally behind, right? Because, I mean, when you ask, or when you say that budgets are not just budgets, it's not just numbers. There's so much to it. There's a person behind every cent that we allocate. And my biggest frustration as a former member of parliament was that, I mean, in the first year or so, you're trying to understand the system, right? So in the first financial year, you're trying to understand how the relationship between departments and them bringing the annual performance plan and the budget to the portfolio committee, and then the passing of the budget, and then they come back with the reports, and then we're back at it again. They're presenting another budget and plans, and then you realize that you're not sure if you're the egg or if you're the chicken. Like, you're not sure at what point of the cycle you're in as Parliament to make sure that you can effectively play an oversight role on the budget. So it almost felt like departments come and present a budget to us for compliance, not because we can actually shape the budget, because really you can't say, no, we're not going to accept the budget, because then the country can't run, So you need to figure out at what point do you actually get involved to make sure that the next budget cycle looks a little bit more like what South Africans would like it to look like. You get what I'm saying? So I'm just like, I need Buhle in Parliament. I'm not there anymore. And we're not going to talk about why. Party politics are a bit difficult, huh? But we need young people like Buhle in the actual Parliament. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Digital Health. Honorable SOYA is a medical doctor, educator, and one of the most influential health communicators in the world. His work is grounded in frontline service in South African township hospitals and in the use of digital platforms to expand access to trusted health information. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Digital Health, Dr. Siamak Saleh.
Madam Speaker, fellow ministers, Citizen Code, and everyone here tonight. Health is not the absence of illness. It is the foundation of every dream, every opportunity, and every future. A young person can have talent, ambition, education, opportunity, but if they are in pain, if the mind is overwhelmed, or too afraid to ask for help, then every opportunity seems harder to reach. So when we speak about future of young people, health cannot sit on the side. Health, it is the foundation. And for many South Africans, the state of that foundation is fragile. Not because we do not care about their health, but because access keeps failing them. 50 years ago, young South Africans, 50 years ago, young people in South Africa stood up because access was denied to them. Access to education, to dignity, to language, access to the right to shape their own future. Today, the fight for access has not disappeared. It has changed form. For many young people, access to health is still blocked. A young person may have phone but no data. They may have Google but not know which source to trust. They may live near clinic but too afraid to walk into it because of judgment and stigma. They may receive health advice from WhatsApp, TikTok, influencer, long before they actually speak to a nurse or a doctor. That is who digital health must be built for. Last year, I spoke about telemedicine, AI chatbots, electronic records, and gamified health education. But this year, I want to be more direct. So as a Minister of Health, as a Minister of Digital Health, I want to start with access. Access that does not depend on medical aid, fast Wi-Fi, fluent English, or having a private bedroom. Because if digital health only works for people who already have these options, then we have not transformed healthcare. We have just made convenience more convenient. And this cannot be the future. So I took this job more seriously, and I've come up with 3 solutions, or 3 priorities that I want to implement. First, I would make a digital health literacy part of school life and youth development. Just last year, the World Economic Forum ranked misinformation as one of the top global threats to humanity alongside wars and climate change. Because misinformation, it can help people mistrust medication, vaccine, contraception, HIV care, even to the healthcare worker themselves. And that can lead to them refusing evidence-based treatment or even delaying it. Young people should learn how to check a health claim, how to question an influencer, how to identify these miracle cures. And when online advice needs to become medical care. Because the future of healthcare is not only teaching young people what to know, it is teaching them how to know what to trust. Second, I would like to make digital health access zero-rated, data light, and easy to find. They should not need expensive data to check whether a symptom is urgent or not. They should not need speed, like fast Wi-Fi to understand what services available to them, what are their rights, and what's next to do. It can work through mobile apps, WhatsApp, SMS, tools, answering important questions like, is this urgent? Where can I get help? And do I need to see a doctor or a counselor? Because if the first step to help costs data, then access to health, which is a basic human right, already has a price tag. Third, I would create a digital health corners in schools, libraries, campuses, clinics, youth centers, small private booth with a private screen, headphones, no data needed, no login, no queues. A place where young people can quietly check symptoms, find a clinic, understands their rights, get a referral if needed. Because for the young person we keep talking about, often does not have a private bedroom. They do not have a phone that they don't share it with others. They don't have a door that locks. Digital health should not replace doctors, nurses, counselors, clinics, community health workers. These corners should basically bridge them to the young people to the healthcare workers. 50 years ago, young people stood up for access and dignity. This generation is not asking simply for an app, another app. They are asking whether the system that claims to be helping them are actually going to reach them. Digital health, if done properly, can be one of the most powerful tools for equity this country has ever had. Let us make digital health a promise that reaches beyond privilege to every young life that deserves care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I don't know about yourselves in the room or in the house, in this august house, but there's a theme that's building from one speaker to the other. And as we go into the second session, the theme will continue to build. You'll see a relationship between what various ministers have said. And I think at the end, Lisa, I mean, you're the brainchild behind this, so I'm sure you knew what you were doing. But, I mean, Candace, I'm sorry, Honorable Ministers, I'm going to refer to you in your first names because I'm still learning these ministries there. You know, South Africans, sometimes when you engage them, you say to them, there's a ministry of X, Y, and Z. They say, really? There's a ministry of that? And you're thinking, what? Like, why do you not know this? Like, so you're a taxpayer. Your money's going towards this ministry, right? So I think when we've all seen the reshuffles, and what happens, some ministries are put together, some are separated, things like that. So I am completely discombobulated by the different ministries we have here. But Minister Chirwa speaks about, or takes our imagination into literally the lived realities of women, and cautions us from being dismissive of the reproductive health of women, the same health that Honorable Sia was speaking about, and its accessibility. And then Honorable Nadia speaks to us about technology and how it's only important that we feed what is necessary, and cautions us on the cookies. And immediately we see a relationship there from the Minister of Menstruation to the minister who's dealing with digital health and the minister who's dealing with security. Rodwell, the Minister of Positive Masculinity, speaks to us about the fact that boys can cry too, and that allowing men to, be fragile is part of us finding ways of maybe solving issues like GBVF. And a minister who speaks about work on GBVF is coming up soon. Raisa reminds us that leadership requires imagination. And across all these ministries and the challenges we need to solve in these ministries is the issue of imagination. How do you lead if you can't think beyond what is presented to you? Like, I don't understand. And as a young person who's now in government, my biggest challenge is the fact that senior management in government is at a point where maybe your imagination, at an age at which maybe your imagination can't really, see yourself as Rapunzel, I think I'm an African Rapunzel, So that is part of the challenges I'm seeing. I sit and I'm the only senior manager in the entire department. Like a whole department, I'm the only senior manager who's under the age of 35. Of course, we're not going to be able to imagine beyond what is presented to us. Honorable members, distinguished guests, I'm not trying to be somber at all. I'm just trying to get us to really reflect on these important conversations. The House thanks all honorable members for their interventions, and that concludes the first part
Some activists say South Africa might as well be labelled a mass grave for women.
Women for Change wanted to push the government to declare femicide a national disaster. The system was built to shut down protests, so we chose the one thing they wouldn't dare stop. We turned our protest into a funeral for every single woman killed by femicide. The unburied casket. We built a casket that was never meant to be buried, 33.8% bigger than a standard one, reflecting the rise in femicide. We adorned the casket with thousands of Zulu beads.
Violence and femicide, turning public outrage into collective action. I now recognize the Honourable Minister of Gender-Based Violence, Honourable Sabrina Walter.
Watching this video makes me feel very, very proud of what Women for Change has achieved over the past 10 years. But when I watch this video, I do not only see the story of the unburied casket. I see the story of every South African woman. Women who never gave up. Women who are so powerful. I also see the story of millions of young South Africans who have decided that violence against women is no longer to be treated as normal. Perhaps that is the most important lesson I have learned over the past decade. Change and power have never belonged to organizations or politicians. Change and power have always belonged to the people. But what is the actual state of gender-based violence for young people today? For 10 years, I have supported thousands of survivors and families. And for me, those stories, those women, are never just statistics. They are mothers trying to leave abusive relationships without losing their children. They are young women who have been told for years that what is happening to them is love. They are little girls who grew up watching their mothers survive the most horrific violence, and now the same girls find themselves trapped in the same cycles. Many of them will never have the opportunity to tell their stories. Not because they don't want to, but because they are afraid of what will happen to them if they would speak up. They are afraid their families or friends will shame them. They feel like no one will believe them. They are scared of being blamed for the violence they experienced, and they are afraid of being asked what they are wearing, why they stayed, and why they went back. And so they stay silent, because gender-based violence is still treated as a topic, a woman's issue, or a line item in a budget, when it should be treated for what it truly is, a human rights crisis. In South Africa, femicide is 6 times higher than the global average. According to the 2024 crime statistics, every day 15 women are killed, and around 117 rapes are reported at a police station. And while those statistics sound horrific, the reality is even worse. It is estimated that up to 95% of rape survivors will never report what has happened to them. This means the true number of rapes taking place in South Africa per year could be closer to 1 million. But while we continue to live in a country where too many women and girls cannot live freely, I also believe that over the past 10 years, we have made some progress. I've seen so many young women find their voices and begin their healing journey. I've seen young boys educate one another and ask the difficult questions. I've seen our communities mobilize. I've seen young people lead conversations in schools and university. And I've seen hundreds of thousands of women, members of the queer community, allies and young people unite as one during the G20 Women's Shutdown on the 21st of November 2025, which actually generated enough public pressure for gender-based violence and femicide to be finally declared a national disaster. And while that classification was an important and historic moment, acknowledgement was never enough. So where do we go from here? Families must become the first classroom. Healthy relationships, consent, equality, and respect cannot start as a school assembly. They have to start at the dinner table. Schools must do more than raise awareness. A few life orientation lessons and an awareness campaign do not change behavior. We need comprehensive education that starts early. And we need teachers who have the skills, confidence, and support to create safe spaces for young people. Our government must finally move from promises to action, because enough really is enough. Classifying gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster was a really important step, but now we need to see real impact through resources, funding, accountability, and urgency. And most importantly, for survivors, they need access, legal protection, more safe houses, better support services, and more opportunities to rebuild their lives. Many people have asked me whether one voice can really make a difference. And my answer is always the same: yes. Every moment begins with one voice, one conversation, one person deciding that silence is no longer acceptable. Women for Change started with one voice. The Purple Movement started with one idea. The National Disaster Campaign began with one petition and one signature. And together, all those voices became a movement of millions. So I want to leave you with this. The future of South Africa will not be decided by politicians and government action alone. It will be decided by people who choose to show up and care deeply about others. We need to become the people we have been waiting for. We need to become the change we are so desperately need in this country, in this world. And most importantly, we need to become the generation that finally breaks the cycle of violence and creates a South Africa where everyone can finally live without fear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Sabrina. You know, on my way here, I find the Joburg-Cape Town flight to be very long. Those 2 hours are just, they always just feel so long for me, despite having lived in Joburg and in Cape Town for 5 years while I was an MP. So I always find a way to download something to watch. And because on the socials, The Polygamist has been trending, I thought, okay, I better download this and, you know, just see what everyone's buzzing about or raving about. And when Honorable Sabrina speaks about how we're beginning to see a shift in society and in the conversations we're having, there's a scene on The Polygamist where, and this is testament to how TV is now getting involved in assisting us with the socialization of society. There's a scene where, I think it's Menzi, the son, the firstborn son or something like that. He likes this girl. And this girl is a little bit more chacharach, I think. Like she just, you know, girl's ready. But Menzi has multiple opportunities to sort of, you know, advance. And then the cousin, Menzi's cousin says, I'm fair too, just advance. This girl likes you. You can see this girl likes you. And Menzi says, no, I need to be careful because it could be sexual harassment. And that scene stuck with me because I said, oh, wow, that was deliberate. They deliberately created that scene. They deliberately created a moment where Menzi says, no, I need to be careful. Yes, I think she likes me, but I'm not sure that she likes me. And if if I'm too forward, it could be sexual harassment. I thought to myself, I like this because it means we're going somewhere in using, I mean, everybody is watching this thing. It's all over Instagram and Twitter, and I don't know, TikTok, I don't know wherever. I have Instagram, but I'm seeing it. And I just think you're right, Sabrina, because government can do what government is doing. But if we aren't able to change the mindset of people, and we know the power of these telenovelas and whatever. We watch the people, people, I think they even dream about these people that they're watching. So I really thought that, it was powerful to see that scene. And so I agree with you that we're possibly getting somewhere, and through the help of Ndlovu and the work that you're doing, we definitely, hopefully, can also reach a time at which we can say we've eradicated gender-based violence and femicide in our country. Thank you, Honorable Sabrina. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Gaming. Honorable Rogerson is a strategist, storyteller, and advocate for the power of games to drive meaningful change. Through her work at Sea Monster Entertainment, she demonstrates how gaming can support learning, empathy, participation, and human connection. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Gaming, Honorable Arabella Rogerson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There is a quote that I come back to often. It's from an American biologist. His name is E.O. Wilson, and he said that we have Paleolithic emotions, we have medieval institutions, and we have godlike technology. And I think it's one of the most honest descriptions of the world that we're living in right now. We have never had more power, more information, more connectivity. AI is rewriting what is possible in real time, in medicine, in education, in how we communicate. The technology available to this generation right now is, by any historical measure, extraordinary. And yet we are in crisis. From climate to mental health to youth unemployment and inequality and many of the things that my fellow ministers have spoken about tonight. A number of people, or most of you, will know about these problems. They've been named, they've been reported, they've been posted about. And often the issue doesn't lie in awareness. It's that we're still trying to solve and tackle these 21st century problems with medieval tools, with passive media, with one-way communication, with systems that talk at people rather than with them. And our ancient emotional wiring is not naturally moved by a statistic or a policy brief, no matter how urgent it might be. So what if? What if the medium that we use to tackle some of these crises actually met people where they are, where people spend their time? What if it was interactive and immersive and personal? What if we thought about using games? So I stand here tonight as the Minister of Impact Games to advocate for exactly that, for the medium and for the importance of play. And the statistics tell us that globally, nearly half of the world's population is engaging with play and with games in one form or another. In South Africa, that number is more than just 1 in 3 people who are active. And across the continent, it's about 350 million Africans who play. That number is growing 6 times faster than the global average, and most of those people are the youth. Games have become an integral part of youth life and culture around the world and here in South Africa. And yet, in serious spaces, there's a sense that games as a medium aren't quite legitimate, that they belong in the category of distraction and of time wasting. And I want to challenge that today. So 4 days ago, the world observed the International Day of Play. It was established by the UN to reaffirm Article 31 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, every child's right to play. And the research behind that declaration is unambiguous. Play is the foundation of lifelong learning. As humans, we have learned through play for millennia. Play is something that we were encouraged to do when we were young, and then along the way we were told that it was no longer important, no longer relevant, no longer serious. But it can be when it's designed with purpose. So think about what a game requires of you. You must make decisions, you face consequences, you're not a passive observer, you're inside the experience. And what happens next depends on you and your decisions, and that is an incredible learning environment. As a result, games can teach complex topics like financial literacy. They can shift attitudes around health and consent and climate. They can put history in your hands and ask you to reckon with it. They can tell South African stories in South African voices and give young people who have rarely seen themselves as the center of the story an opportunity to do just that. That is hugely powerful. And I also acknowledge that there is a dark side to this, we have to be honest. Addiction is real and compulsive use is real, and anyone serious about the medium of games has to be serious about that too. But the response should not be to dismiss games. It should be to build better, more intentional games, and to develop the literacy to engage with them critically. So the good news is that none of this is theoretical. There is a growing, active, global movement driven by organizations like Games for Change, which has spent more than 20 years championing the use of games to help address the UN's SDGs. And by aligning game design with social impact, that movement is transforming games into a critical tool for education, for empathy, and for community activism. And there is a local chapter of this movement called Games for Change Africa, which is doing that work right here at home, running festivals and development programs to actively empower youth, educators, and local studios to leverage gaming and interactive media as catalysts for social innovation and economic empowerment. My fellow minister Lisa is on the advisory board of that organization, and Amy Duncan is the program director of Games for Change Africa. She's in the audience with us today, so I would encourage you all to engage with them if you want to learn more. There's also a really remarkable arcade going on at the moment where young creators and young members of studios have created games and want to showcase them, and I would encourage you all to go experience them firsthand and see how brilliant they are. So what is the state of impact games in South Africa? Well, we have the audience, young, connected, digitally native, and growing faster than anywhere else on earth. And we have incredible talent. Young developers, growing studios, and storytellers creating work that matters, and some of them are in the room here today. And we have the proof that games are effectively changing how people think, how people feel, learn, and act at scale around the world. What we need is a commitment to take games and to take play seriously. So I want to be specific about what that means. It means that organizations, funders, and corporates with the resources fund local studios and fund games as an investment into one of the most effective tools for education and behavior change that we have available. It means that local government recognize that this sector can help produce the kind of skilled digital jobs that this country is desperately short of and shows up to the table accordingly. It means that schools and educators learn to see the difference between players' distraction and players' constructive, because we need more effective ways to expose people to the issues that matter to us and to effectively teach the skills of the future, and games can offer that. So if we're serious about using the tools and technology that we have at our disposal to meet the crises of our time, then we cannot afford to leave games on the sidelines any longer. To every young person here tonight, do not wait for permission to play. Do not wait for permission to build, because the world needs people who can imagine, who can iterate, who can fail and adapt. It needs storytellers who understands this country from the inside, and it needs more impact games. So take up every inch of this space that this medium is offering you, because with it, you can help change the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Arabella. I wish the president of the country, the real president, not Lisa, I wish the president of the republic was like here tonight, because the little boy in him who dared him to stand in front of the country in 2019 and deliver the State of the Nation address and call on South Africans to dream, that little boy's wish to dream would have been ratified. It wasn't weird for the president to call on us as a country to dream. I mean, members of the opposition said, can you imagine an entire leader of a nation with 60-something million people is calling on us to dream? He must lead. I think it was leadership for him to call on us to dream. And I think Minister Arabella has said it, because you have the right to play, because in the right to play, you use your imagination, and using your imagination is innovation. And playing, you learn basic human skills, and you guys think about weird things, and you know, And then you realize that when you get older, that you're actually going to start doing those weird things you guys were imagining. And so I really think that conversations like the ones we're having today need to land with the actual leaders of this country. Lisa, I don't know, I want to try Mtasakaya. I want to try to figure out how we can get, like, I don't know, these real ministers to sit here in the front row and listen to what the ministers of the future and of the now are actually saying. Because I think they need to play. You know, guys, going to government conferences is so boring. It is, oh my God. Sorry. But like, it's tough, and it's the same thing. Or it's the same, I don't know, coding and stuff, but you know, it's like it's the same thing over and over again. And we keep thinking we're gonna get different results, and then it just looks the same every year. And we're like, how come? How come they didn't come? How come, you know, the young people say they are unemployed, but we have all these government programs? It's because, are you making sure that they're aware of the programs in a way that actually makes them understand that they are programs? You know, because we have that challenge, guys. Government, I don't think it was Buhle, she said it. There are so many products that government has available, that private sector has available, yet the unemployment rates in this country are still as high as they are. I don't think it makes sense. So, I mean, you can clap for the Madam Speaker too. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Internships. Honorable Mitu is a junior software engineer, artificial intelligence student, and founder of Code Connection. She's also one of the youngest voices in this house today. I know what that feels like. I was 24 when I was in Parliament. Having recently moved from education into employment herself, she speaks directly to the gap between skills and opportunity. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Internships, Honorable Kiara Mitu.
Good evening, honorable members, Madam Speaker, and my fellow South Africans. It's with great honor that I stand here today and address the state of internships. This conversation is one that comes with the responsibility of representing a generation, not just a portfolio. I want to talk about the real stories of real people and the lived realities of youth in South Africa who are still fighting for a better future, a more equal future, 50 years after the Soweto uprising. I'm speaking from the experience of someone who has recently left secondary education, entered tertiary institutions, and is tired of hearing the same promises over and over again from people in power. Young people are passionate. We're known for pushing boundaries and defying odds. The false narrative that youth are lazy and don't know how to work is an excuse to cover up for a system that is failing us. Tools taught in degrees are outdated. We're being taught to learn and use tools that no longer have relevance. Institutions are spending years preparing students for jobs that evolved 15 years ago, where employers are now looking for a whole new set of skills. The system is producing readiness for a time that no longer exists. The current state of internships is one that you don't find out about until you have your degree and are looking for a job. When you go to apply for a job, you only get met with requirements that no new graduate should have. Students are spending years at institutions and are leaving with diplomas, degrees, and certificates into a system that undervalues them. They're qualified on paper, but in practice, they're misaligned with virtually every industry. Somewhere along the line, internships stopped being about building the next generation and started being about filling immediate gaps. And young people are paying up the price for the shift. When opportunities are not thought out through an inclusive and intersectional lens, it can act as a gatekeeping mechanism over a pathway. Without considering how learners will get to the office, whether they're the sole provider for their family or any other systemic barriers, it can be difficult to understand just how inaccessible these positions are. Internships are an economic structure that can help guarantee a successful future for a country, not a form of charity or a waste of resources. Without new opportunities, there's a loss on productivity and therefore lower levels of economic growth and output. So how can we achieve meaningful opportunities? It starts with structured frameworks. We need to have honest conversations about setting minimum standards around how many interns and entry-level
positions organizations of a certain size should require to offer, what those positions should pay, and what outcomes should produce. If a company has the capacity to create opportunities and is not doing so, then that needs to be visible and have consequences. It also means moving away from internships that exist purely on paper, but towards a structured program with clear learning outcomes, designated mentors, and defined pathways. An internship should not just be a young person making coffee for 3 months. It should be a deliberate investment into someone's development, with measurable milestones, a genuine possibility of employment at the end of it. And last but not least, we need a format. We need formal, sustained partnerships between learning institutions and businesses. It should be more than just once-off guest lectures. It should be ongoing collaborations that shape curriculums, create direct pipelines into employment, and ensures that what young people are learning connects to what the economy needs. The conversation on education and skilling are directly correlated and cannot happen individually. It's the pipeline from one another that ultimately decides the success of learners becoming professionals, and the conversation has never been more relevant than during the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We've been talking about the skills gap for years, but AI and technology are redefining what that gap looks like, almost overnight. Having access to skills, tools, and education is more important than having access to the internet in order to participate in an economy increasingly shaped by AI. Young people in under-resourced schools, in townships, in rural areas are not being prepared for the shift. And if we do not close that gap deliberately and urgently, we are not just looking at the unemployment crisis we have now. We are looking at a generation who gets locked out of the economy entirely before they even get a chance to enter it. Systems are built by people, which means they can be rebuilt by people. And that's what State of the Youth Address is all about. It's about refusing to wait for someone to build a better future. Every minister in this chamber today is proof that young South Africans are not just sitting around hoping to be included in the conversation. We're showing up, creating spaces for ideas to be taken seriously. And the cost, because
the employer wants. I don't know how to make sure my CV meets what the employer wants. The employer doesn't know what they want. The employer can't see the skills that young people have. Young people have skills. This, one of the greatest weaknesses of government is that government cannot communicate what it is doing. Yet young people on TikTok, they have millions of followers and millions of likes. Why can't you use the young people who are TikToking to help you communicate better as government? So employers also need to learn how to look at skill and see the skill that young people have and make it work for them. Because I also learned something new. They said young people, we must stop saying young people are neat. We must say young people are elite. They're looking for employment, education, and training. Because young people feel like every time we say they're neat, it's as if they're not trying to look. So, thank you very much, Honorable Mitu. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Memory and Belonging. Honorable Powell is a South African archaeologist and digital anthropologist whose work explores how culture, power, and technology shape knowledge, memory, and belonging. Her work asks difficult questions about who gets remembered, whose stories survive, and how communities reclaim their place in history. I now recognize Honorable Minister of Memory and Belonging, Honorable Lauren Powell.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening, people of South Africa. I've heard all protocols observed. Well, I would like not all protocols to be observed. I think that we've maybe forgotten that we've inherited some of those protocols and that they are inherently colonial and imperial and do not belong here. Some of them are old, outdated, and very Eurocentric. And the last time I checked, we are in Africa. So hi, my name is Lauren. My name is Lauren, and for those who may be confused as to why a white-looking woman is talking on memory and belonging, I'm not white. I'm just a colored girl from Lansdowne who thought that there may be dinosaur bones under her house, and then we ran with it. So that's why I'm here. So what's the state of memory in South Africa? And how does this affect our sense of belonging? South Africa has a memory problem. We've been made to forget the things that are inherently part of our existence and our resistance. We have forgotten different ways of leadership and governance. We have adopted the frameworks of governance from an oppressive system, forgotten our different forms of leadership. And then we sit back and we're confused. Why doesn't this work for us? I don't believe the original framework was made to work for us anyway. South Africa seems to have a problem of moving memories from one generation to the next. Sure, we have archives, we have museums, we have the history curriculum in the schooling system, which is already problematic, but that's one form of memory. The one I'm talking about is storytelling. When I was younger, I didn't really care about my family history or heritage. I didn't always grab my interest, my grandmother talking about her sister who ran away with another man. But I did like rummaging through her cupboards, her brooches, the smell of her perfume. I found that very interesting. But I don't think I valued at the time were all those stories she was telling me. And I don't think society has set us up to value our own history or even our own stories. Because I don't believe we're made to value ourselves in the greater social system. We believe our stories don't matter. There are plenty of times when I visit people and they find out I'm an archaeologist, they run to their back room, they come through with these boxes, and they tell me stories of their families and where they come from, and do I know anything about it? We're looking for connection. And I love listening, and people love feeling heard. And when we feel heard, and when we feel our stories matter, I think it quickly translates to being valued. And when we are valued, we start feeling like we belong. Heritage in South Africa has never been more accessible, but that doesn't mean that it's accessible enough. When I say the word heritage, people think monuments, museums, or a room full of dusty books that no one really reads anymore. Our heritage is a living, breathing thing. It's a relationship between people and memory and identity. So if heritage only exists in museums, what happens to the heritage being created online today? We are archiving our own stories. We are curating our own history through pictures and videos online every day. But I think the real issue with the state of memory is maybe that young South Africans today struggle with seeing themselves in the stories that we've been telling. For many of us, we've inherited multiple layers of memory or parts of memory. We've inherited stories of colonialism and apartheid and globalization and this fresh democracy that we're supposed to be free in. And the majority of the youth today did not personally experience it. But we live in the consequences every day. The spatial inequality, the economic inequality, the education inequality, the unequal access to opportunities. We feel it all the time, we live it. We don't always understand where it comes from because we were supposed to be born free. So, where do young South Africans belong? Where do we feel we belong? I think the youth of today have an expanded version of community. During apartheid, our freedom of movement, our freedom of interaction was quite restricted. So our understanding of community is smaller. But I think the youth of today have a good grip on digitally recording their lives and their thoughts. And I think that they've broadened their sense of community to something more global. I think we are starting to make knowledge more accessible and interactable. I'm an archaeologist. I've spent years studying, and I still hop onto TikTok to find something new about history that I didn't know before. So what I did was I sat down with an intergenerational group of people, and I tested out a framework for sharing stories and memories and of pain and joy, of tough things, of good things. And I found that some of the older generations would only talk about the good things that they could remember. until finally we got to one of the younger participants, and we were talking about home and family. And this person put up their hand and started off with, so my family was dysfunctional, and my home looked like. And this person talked about both their pains and their joys at home and in family. And automatically, the rest of the participants, the older generation, started opening up about their parents' struggles, seeing their fathers angry, and how the violent apartheid legacy swept into their homes. Oh, I'm out of time. So from this, I realized that as South Africans, we need to create more open spaces of intergenerational spaces. We need psychosocial support because the memories that we have are littered with stories like the Soweto uprising. They are painful. They don't only hold joy. And in the same way that I was taught to excavate really fragile fossils gently with a soft brush, I think we must excavate collective memories carefully with support. So, some protocols observed, but not others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Paul. Yeah, look, you've eaten into my closing remarks, so I'm not going to say anything now until my closing remarks. Thank you so much. I'm going to change things up, so ministers, don't be uncomfortable. The House thanks Honorable Powell. The House will now proceed to an address by the Minister of Rights and Receipts. Honorable Mpisi is an attorney and legal engineer working at the intersection of law, technology, and governance. His work focuses on ensuring that as artificial intelligence increasingly shapes decisions, I'm hearing my ministers like chatting here at the back about possibly how I've shifted the program a bit, sorry. Sorry, Honorable Mpisi. I hope you in leadership, you must always be ready.
Oh, 100%. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That's where I am right now.
So I'm just going to go back a bit. Sorry, I got distracted there a bit. I want to go back a bit so we can give Honorable Mpisi a proper introduction, okay? Honorable Mpisi is an attorney and legal engineer working at the intersection of law, technology, and governance. His work focuses on ensuring that as artificial intelligence increasingly shapes decisions about employment, finance, public services, and opportunity, those systems remain transparent, accountable, and rooted in human rights. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Rights and Receipts, Honorable Wandile Mpisi.
Thank you for your recognition, Madam Speaker, and good evening to the House, good evening to the ministers, and again, more importantly, good evening to the youth. I see kids here, which is really important because they are, again, they are part of this conversation, and it's really inspiring to see young people part of this conversation. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. When I got the brief for this portfolio, I was excited for like 10 seconds. I was like, ooh, Minister of Rights and Receipts, how cute, how chic. But the reality started to sit and sink in. The reality is that we live in a country or a society where rights are promised, rights are good on paper, rights are, and again, I've studied the Constitution, I've studied the law, and we are told constantly that, oh, we have one of the best constitutions that we've ever seen. But then the reality that a lot of South Africans are facing right now is that rights on paper aren't good enough. What about the receipts? What about the lived experiences of people where the Constitution does not reach? Because, for example, I come from a rural community, and don't look at me dressed up all fancy, but I come from the rural areas. And every Christmas and every Easter, I travel back there and I realize that the Constitution did not arrive in those communities. And it forces us to sit with an uncomfortable question and an uncomfortable reality, is that where our government is honestly and truly failing us right now. But again, saying that is not enough. We also need to ask about accountability. And that's why I started my speech with acknowledging the youth in the room. I'm sure there are many of us in the room, as well as our aged allies who are sitting with us. Because all too often, we have young people, or young people have been the ones in South Africa who have forced us to address the gaps that exist in society and forced us to address the gaps of rights on paper versus the lived realities of people on the streets. So, and we see this from the June 16 uprising to the Fees Must Fall movement to, again, the Women for Change movements. Again, it was youth mobilizing to fight for what they deemed as important for them. And it is important for us to continue that fight because that conversation has transformed and evolved into what we are seeing today. And it's important for us to continue with that movement. So my conversation is around rights and receipts. And it's quite a simple one, but also quite an uncomfortable question. And as I said earlier, it's because the Constitution grants rights to a lot of individuals, but then we are forced to sit with the uncomfortable question, which is, where are the receipts? We have invoices that are unpaid. There's a debt that is owed to us that hasn't been realized. And then the question of accountability then comes to question. Who should be held accountable? Who is responsible for this unpaid debt? And quite often it falls on those who are responsible for enforcing those rights, and it is the state. Now, and I'm glad that the Madam Speaker mentioned this earlier, there is a tie between all the discussions that were had by the various ministers. Again, it revolves around rights. And again, where are the receipts? So for example, we have the Minister of Menstruation. Where's access to healthcare? We have Minister of Employment. Where are the jobs? Where are the receipts? Because often than not, a right is guaranteed by the Constitution, and a receipt is proof that that right was honored. And if it is not honored, then we have a serious problem. So the sad thing that we face right now is a sad reality, is that we see that a lot of people, or some parts of society, rights are not a question because we live in privileged societies and we don't have to question them. You're sick, you go to the hospital and you get treated immediately. But again, for majority of South Africans, that is not the case. And that is why this ministry is important, because we ask the hard questions. Where are the receipts? So the question, again, is not if we have rights. The question is whether they are implemented and whether they are honored. And the reason this is also important is because we have our governments who write these policies, who write these frameworks, who pass these laws. But the issue is that these laws break down and don't ever reach the communities they are meant to serve. And that is a massive problem. And this indicates the various failures that exist in our systems that we have. It's because execution and accountability is not there. More often than not, again, we have public budgets that are transparently addressed by, that are currently published, that are constantly published by the state. But the reality is those numbers do not equate to a school. It does not equate to a computer lab for the underprivileged. It does not equate to a hospital. It does not equate to a woman receiving menstrual health care. And we have to ask ourselves, accountability, where does it lie? It lies again with the states. And it matters because more often than not, we have people who, or the people who are responsible for realizing these rights are not the ones experiencing these realities that a lot of people are facing. And that is why accountability is important. And it shouldn't be the case that young people have to mobilize. We have to go to the streets and protest in order for our voices to be heard. That should never be the case. That should not be a reality. So we face ourselves with the government setting a terrible precedent or scary precedent where in order for us to receive our rights, we have to mobilize and go to the streets. We saw it with the Women for Change movement. We saw it with Fees Must Fall. And that is a dangerous precedent because, again, our rights are not honored unless we scream and shout. Now, when I speak about reimagining what society looks like from a rights and receipts perspective, I envision a society where accountability is driven by informed and empowered individuals. So again, sitting here right now is part of that. You are part of the conversation, and that is important. And every citizen should understand what the municipality is doing, what the municipality is doing, and what they are doing with the funds that are budgeted every month or every year. So, sorry, let me just skip. And again, I see I'm out of time, so I'm just going to quickly wrap this up. I want to just preface that accountability does not end with access to the information that we seek from our municipalities. It also requires active participation. And I think it's really important to mention that elections are coming up. And it's important for the youth to take part in those, to take space in those rooms, to make sure that they are in the rooms when these decisions are made, because these decisions affect them. And that's why rights and receipts are important, because we live in a society where it's been normalized for us to not expect the states to act. And that's why the young people are, again, one of the factors that are driving this. So everyone should demand the receipts because, again, this is a reality that we cannot accept. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mbisi. Can I kindly ask that the Citizen Code team just be on standby after Honorable Adams makes her intervention? I hope whoever who's supposed to do something is noting this hint. All right? Cool. Honorable guests or distinguished guests, honorable members, it is my absolute honor to welcome Honorable Adams to the podium. She's the founder of Citizen Code and a South African technology leader working at the forefront of digital innovation for social impact. Her work has reached millions across Africa. Lisa, are you that short?
I want to be tall.
Oh, okay, it's fine. Her work has reached millions across Africa and beyond, addressing issues including sexual and reproductive health, gender-based violence, mental well-being, and digital inclusion. I now recognize the Honorable Minister of Technology and Artificial Intelligence, Honorable Lisa Adams.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the House, Madam Speaker, my fellow ministers, all protocols mostly observed. Now, if I knew that I was going last, I wouldn't have edited my speech. And maybe, just maybe, we should start a party. I want to start with the official version of where South Africa stands on technology and AI. The version you would hear at conferences, or in a cabinet briefing, or in the opening paragraph of a government press release. Mobile connectivity has reached over 91% of households. We have a thriving fintech ecosystem. Cape Town consistently ranks among Africa's top startup cities. I won't mention that other startup hub. We were on track to be among the first African nations with a gazetted national AI policy. We are, by most measures, a continental leader. That is the official version. Now, let me tell you what else is true. You know what? I'm going to freestyle this part. If every unemployed South African stood in a straight line, back to back, starting in Cape Town, I wonder where you imagine that would end. I can tell you, I'm in tech, I did the maths. It would start in Cape Town and it would end in Lagos, Nigeria. A third of young people in this country want to work and cannot find work. The jobs that do exist are increasingly shaped by digital systems. algorithmic hiring tools, automated screening, platform labor, systems that were not designed here, not trained on our realities, and currently no accountability to the people that they affect. We have 91% mobile connectivity. We also have an unemployed young person in the Eastern Cape who told me recently, even when we have signal, there's no data. It's too expensive. But both of those things are true at the same time. And for too long, we have been governing for the first sentence while the second one quietly determines people's actual lives. I want to talk about the AI policy situation because I think it tells us something important and we should not rush past that. In April this year, South Africa gazetted its draft national AI policy, Nompendula, I don't know why you didn't phone me, for public comment. It had cleared cabinet. It survived interdepartmental review. It was officially ready for the public. And within weeks, it was withdrawn because it contained fictitious academic references, citations that pointed to journals that do not exist, authors credited with research they never wrote, and references that appear to have been generated by the very technology the policy was trying to govern. Using AI badly to write AI policy is giving AI cannibalism. But I do not raise it to embarrass anyone. I raise it because it is a signal and not about one department's mistake. There's a deeper problem here. We are trying to govern something that we have not yet taken the time to genuinely understand. AI literacy in this country is not only a youth problem, it's a leadership problem, a governance problem, and a public trust problem. And if the people writing the rules cannot verify any of these tools, then what exactly happens to the ordinary people expected to live under those same rules? So what is the actual state of technology and AI in South Africa, you may ask? It's a state of contradiction. We have infrastructure and unaffordability living side by side. We have innovation and deep exclusion occupying the same country. We have young people who are fluent in the digital world and simultaneously locked out of its economic benefits. We have AI systems making decisions about people's access to credit, to jobs, to services, and almost no public conversation about who built those systems, whose data, whose interests in mind. Technology, my friends, is no longer a sector. That is the thing I most want this room to understand tonight. It is not the IT department or a budget line for laptop procurement. Let's not talk about those laptops that got into Parliament recently. Then they needed help to understand how to use MacBooks. It's not something that lives inside one ministry and then leaves the others alone. Not anymore. Technology is now the infrastructure of everything. It's inside health, education, justice, how you apply for a grant, how your CV gets screened, how a girl in Mitchell's Plain decides whether it's safe enough to search for information about a body online. Every ministry in this government is already a technology ministry. The question is only whether we know it and whether anyone is actually responsible for what that means. I have spent 16 years building in the gaps that answer that question, globally and locally. I have built platforms where young women arrive to ask things they cannot ask anywhere else. Not technical questions, human ones. Ones that sound like, is my period normal? Is this abuse? Where can I get help? They don't arrive asking about algorithms. They arrive because the clinic fell too far, too judgmental, or too likely to tell someone that they knew. The platform is the first door. And what I have learned from standing at that door for 16 years is this. Technology can open it, but it can't be the room on the other side. The moment we use a chatbot as an excuse not to fund the actual clinic, we have failed. The moment we count connectivity without counting safety, we have measured the wrong thing. The moment we train an AI system on data that does not include African languages, African contexts, African lives, African fears, African joy, and then deploy it on African people, we have built something that will cause harm, and we will call it progress. The Palestine situation has forced a conversation that we should have been having in Africa all along. Human rights organizations have documented the suppression of content, the disappearing of evidence, the algorithmic burial of testimony. Platforms made decisions about what the world got to see and remember. Our histories have been misnamed, fragmented, extracted, and erased before. So then if AI systems are trained on what platforms choose to preserve, and platforms are not neutral, they are systems of power, then digital infrastructure becomes memory infrastructure. The power to say what happened, the power to say who existed, and the power to say whose grief counts. Whose languages are in the training data? Whose knowledge systems, whose oral histories, whose understanding of family, of community, of harm, or of healing? I didn't plan to stand here today and tell you how AI works. This is all about people. GBV did not stay offline when life moved online. It adapted. Men now use AI tools to digitally strip women of their cultural markers, like an hijab, their clothing, put them in a bikini, their dignity, without consent, at scale, and from the other side of the world a lot of the time. And our legal frameworks, Minister of Rights and Receipts, our platforms, our public institutions cannot keep pace. For many women and girls in this country, the internet is not experienced only as freedom. It is also risk. And access without safety is not empowerment, it is exposure. 50 years ago, young people in Soweto walked out of school. They decided they were not simply subjects of a system, but participants in their own future. That they had the right to refuse exclusion. In 2026, those same questions have digital forms. Who gets to shape the AI systems that will determine how this generation accesses education, healthcare, opportunity, and justice? Who decide what gets preserved and what gets erased? Whose language is worth training a model on, and whose knowledge actually counts? These questions will be answered, and they are being answered right now in boardrooms and server farms and policy offices, mostly elsewhere, mostly by people who have never had to buy data in 10 Rand bundles or decide whether it is safer to search for help. The state of technology and AI in South Africa is not neat. It's full of contradiction, full of lag, full of genuine possibility that is being consistently undermined by the failure to treat this as the serious governance challenge that it actually is. We have been congratulating ourselves on the connectivity numbers and our little Cape Town hubs of privilege, while the deeper questions go unasked. My ministry's priority would be this: do the hard, unglamorous, urgent work of making sure that as technology becomes the infrastructure of everything, that it does not simply replicate every inequality we already have, faster and with better branding. And that's the end of my speech. But I think it's important to add this as well. I think all of these cabinets are really important. And I've worked really hard with my team and everyone who's believed in this to make it happen. I ask you all to think deeper, to back what we do, to fund State of the Youth as a growing movement, a Pan-African movement. I ask you to take a chance on people like me. While I am a technologist, I have no degree. I've learned everything I know with lived experience and the time that I've spent doing my work. I've authored United Nations regional reports on population development and technology. I consult for UNICEF. I work in the Child Protection Unit, designing GBV solutions in humanitarian and conflict zones. I've done a lot, and there are many people like me. I ask you to help me to keep creating the frameworks that are designed from lived experience and true passion for this work. I thank you.
So in Parliament, you're definitely allowed to stand like this. Usually, it'll just be members from your party that do that. May I please ask Honorable Mitu to come forward, please? I don't know, Mitu, I think I should give this mic to you so that you can say something.
I think anyone here who knows Lisa knows how much she cares for this type of initiative. She's put so much work into putting on the first Days of the Youth and the second one, and constantly championing youth and pushing for these different impacts. So on behalf of everyone here, thank you for the work that you do, for constantly believing in the youth and for marginalized communities and being our voice.
Oh, thank you, Kiara. We can all remain standing because I think we've been seated for some time. It's part of us reimagining Parliament. If you would like to sit, you're more than welcome to do so, but if you can stand, please do stand. Sorry. Thank you, Lisa. I met Lisa somewhere on the streets, and now we do work together. But we were doing work on the streets. Yeah. Thank you very much to everyone for allowing me to lead the session. I hope I haven't been too much of a bore. There's something about the stage and guys, I don't know. I think I understand artists now when they're on the stage and why they've become so deep, and there's really something powerful about standing where we're standing. But thank you. Honorable Powell, my closing is a direct response to you, which I wrote before you spoke. Yeah, okay. When I first entered Parliament, I did not always understand all its rituals or protocols. I found some of them, I was 24, right? And at times even very colonial. But over time, I came to appreciate that the question is not whether a house must have structure. Every serious society has to have structure. Even our African courts, our village councils, and community gatherings have protocol. They have order. They have respect. They have, an indication of when it's your turn to now speak, and ways of resolving disagreement. So the ask is not about abandoning order or protocol. The ask or the task is to reimagine what an African parliament, what a South African parliament, what a South African parliament in democratic South Africa looks like, and how it can be rooted in dignity, participation, accountability, ubuntu, intergenerational wisdom, and the courage, that intergenerational wisdom, that memory, intergenerational wisdom, and the courage to change what no longer serves the people. I know this year may have felt a little bit rigid than 2024 maybe, but honorable members, this is how Parliament works. And this one is a cool one. There were too many things that we just are not allowed. And of course, because this year we commemorate 1976, 50 years later, under the theme Reset at 50, should honorable members and distinguished guests be unhappy with the rigidity of proceedings, you remain fully within your democratic rights to press the reset button. And I think Honorable Mpisi spoke to this, Honorable Adams spoke to this, many of the ministers standing next to me spoke to this. So I'm not going to summarize what the second round of ministers said, because I think the best way for us to conclude tonight is in the following manner. As we close this house, we do so mindful of the milestones of our freedom, as in 2026, we mark 50 years since the Soweto uprising. We mark 70 years since the Women's March of 1956. And we also mark 30 years since the adoption of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. It is therefore fitting that we end not with a long closing speech, but with the words that define the democratic promise we are still called to fulfill. I therefore invite all members and guests to please rise as we are. I've risen, they see, script. And then to just repeat after me. We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past. Honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land. Respect those who have worked to build and develop our country. And believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. United in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. Lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people. And every citizen is equally protected by law. Improve the quality of life of all citizens. Free the potential of each person. Build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. May God protect our people. I'll say this part on my own. Nkosi sigelela i-Africa. Morena buluka sichaba sa heso. God sien, God sien South Africa. God bless South Africa. Mudzimu fatuchedza Afrika. Hosi katekisi.